Welcome to the Empowered Parenting webinar. I'm Coach Mandy-Marie. So happy to have you join us today. As way of introduction, I have been a life coach for 9 years and would like to share a little bit more about me with you today. My husband absolutely loves airplanes, and he has restored some and built some from scratch. And this airplane here in this picture is called the Charger, and it's open cockpit that is absolutely so much fun to fly in. Just have the wind go through my hair is just really fun. He just barely finished this airplane and got it to the point where he could take passengers about 2 months ago, and so it was fun to be one of his first passengers. Some of my favorite people on the whole planet are my 8 grandchildren, and I love to be a nana to them. Have you ever said, this parenting thing is really not what I signed up for, or it's not what I thought it would be? Have you ever felt consumed or full of burdensome thoughts or feelings about what's happening in your home or what's not happening in your home? Have you ever felt frustrated or angry at yourself or your child or your teenager? My intent today is to give you hope in your parenting, that there is a way to invite deeper connection with your children. I recently found a great quote that embodies this deeper connection, the ability to have a deeper connection. The quickest way for a parent to get a child's attention is to sit down and look comfortable. So let's get comfortable and move through uncomfortable. There are some misconceptions about parenting. One of them is if I could just talk a little louder or give more words of advice, give the same lecture for the 100th time, then surely they'll listen to me. Surely they'll understand what I'm really trying to say to them. Another misconception is my kids need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with me, it's just my kids. And it leads to the challenge of our children saying, you just don't get me, you don't understand me. That's usually what teenagers will say. You don't understand me. This is important right now because social media is such a strong presence in our world. And while social media in and of itself is not something to be feared or is not something bad, how our children interact with it and how they are getting their connections to what is really meaningful, that's where the concern can be. And understanding that we as parents can have a larger effect than what social media is telling them, as we can deeply connect with them, that is what I am on a mission to help empower parents with. As I mentioned earlier, we have some grandchildren. We have 8 of them. We have 5 children. And what I didn't understand while raising our children was how to really understand their thoughts and their feelings, what was in their hearts. I didn't understand how to even get there with them. And when I began to understand in the last few years, after our kids were grown, how to really seek to understand children and teenagers, and now as they are adult children, it's made a huge, huge difference in my life. And the ability to be able to trust my children in their journeys has been a fantastic result of understanding where my fears were and understanding that I had attached my value to what my children do or didn't do. Whoops. Okay. One day when our children were in their preteen years, Steve and I went downstairs after dinner, and our children were responsible for cleaning the kitchen, and they knew their jobs. They had been trained, like we've done this many, many times. This particular time, there was a lot of contention and a lot of fighting and a lot of, you're not doing your job and that's not my job and you should be doing that. And it didn't take very long before someone came downstairs and reported to us that this is what was going on upstairs. Well, immediately into my mind came this image of two oxen who were yoked and who were walking down the road. And I thought, oh, well, this would probably be a really good time to talk about being yoked and working together. So my husband and I walked upstairs and we grabbed the oatmeal and the sugar and the flour and we started throwing it all over the floor because we thought, well, this would be a great opportunity to teach them how to work together and to give them something more to do to practice working together. Well, as you can imagine, this led to more crying and yelling and just lots of trauma. It was not the best thing to do. And about that point, my husband realized, we've got to do something different. To be continued. I'll finish that part of the story in just a minute. The struggle is parents who try to engage with their children and try to guide and teach and get a lot of, you just don't understand me, especially from teenagers. What is really happening is the disconnection between the child and the teen really feeling heard and understood and valued from their parents. It can be that they are really dealing with loneliness that maybe we don't really even know, or if we know they're lonely, we don't really understand why. Maybe they're being bullied at school. Maybe they're overwhelmed with schoolwork and feel like they can't learn whatever the teacher is teaching them. And inside builds up the pressure and they feel ready to burst. Possibly it's the younger children in grade school. Some of these pictures denote what could possibly be going on with younger children. This picture may evoke something about how our world climate is changing. The truth is, everything in the climate in our lives and the lives of our children is changing. And if we as parents aren't willing to change and to recognize the changes that are happening, how can we expect our children to? When parenting challenges really began to show up for my husband and I, we did what was pretty logical to us, and that was just talk a little louder. Say more words, give that lecture again. And the challenges just became more pronounced. It actually didn't help us. And one day it hit us that we were the ones that needed to make some changes. As we began this journey, we discovered some things that absolutely don't work. One of those was that believing that someone else was to blame. Maybe it was a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a teacher. Somebody else was to blame, and that didn't work. We realized that it didn't work to believe that our children needed to be fixed, that there was nothing for us to change or to do differently. It was just our children. That didn't work. Believing that we were bad parents, well, that certainly didn't work. That just amplified the problem. Believing that life was going to be awful moving forward and that there just really wasn't any answer, that didn't work. And believing that it was really important to shield our children from challenges and difficulties, that didn't work. I will always remember the day that my husband and I were sitting in the car in the middle of the town that we lived in as we were talking about what was going on. And we both came to the conclusion very strongly that we needed to go first. We needed to change something about us. So what if the answer to your parenting struggles is inside of you, just waiting to be discovered? What if it's something that you can change to invite more connection with your children? Our children and our teenagers, they need us. They need parents who are willing to look in the mirror and see if there's something that they can change. to help then be in a place to guide them as children or teenagers in a very tumultuous world. The world is a really tough place to launch children into, especially if they have learned from mom or dad that they can't trust themselves in their thoughts and their feelings and their experiences, and if they haven't learned how to move through their insecurities and their frustrations. Imagine what could happen with a little knowledge and some practice as you connect with your children. They already are inundated with other offers to connect with someone else or something else that does not have their best interests. What could happen if you learn some techniques to invite a deeper connection with your children? I can show you how to understand the messages that your children are really sending to you when they withdraw. I've developed an eight-week online group coaching program for $497. It's Wednesday evenings beginning October 12th, goes through December 7th, and there'll be hour-long meetings. You can register at coachmandymarie.com. You will gain experience with techniques. You'll actually practice techniques and then return and report about those techniques and how they're working for you. This class is specifically designed for parents with children and teenagers. I will help you understand what is preventing you from becoming the best parent that you can be. You'll learn how to be gentle with yourself. I will teach you techniques to help empower you in your parenting. We'll take you on a hero's journey and learn what's in the way of you having the connection that you want with your children. We'll reprogram your subconscious mind, your subconscious brain with what is really true about your children and about you as a parent seeking to do your very best. I'll teach you powerful tools to help you cool your temper quickly and step into wisdom and find that you can move forward no matter what the challenges are. Back to the kitchen story. So after throwing the flour and the oil and the oatmeal, or the flour and the sugar and the oatmeal all around the kitchen floor, my husband decided that he was going to sweeten things up because it was pretty intense. So he started throwing chocolate chips all around. We shifted our energy from frustration to playful. And this playfulness was our boys' first off decided, I guess I'll start eating chocolate chips, and that calmed them down and helped them to not feel so stressed by what was going on. I can help you adjust your parenting patterns in the very moment of frustration with the techniques that I will teach in this group coaching program. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, to be trained with techniques, and we'll even have some coaching. A couple of weeks ago, one of my clients shared this with me. The most important thing you have taught me is that 90% of the influence I have on my kids is to listen to them rather than try to give them advice. The other day, my daughter was really down about something, and I heard your voice telling me to just be there for her. So I laid on her bed with her and asked her how she was feeling. And I scaffolded questions like you've taught me, and I just let her talk. I didn't offer any advice. She didn't ask for any. The next day she was fine. And when something upsetting happened a few days after that, she handled it beautifully. It was much less exhausting for me to not try to take ownership of fixing the problem. And obviously all she needed from me at that moment was my unconditional love and support. I love what this mother said. It was much less exhausting for me to not try to take ownership of fixing the problem. This is the empowerment that is waiting for you. You and your children And your teenagers will benefit from you beginning to understand what is in your way of creating the connection, the relationships that you want with your children, and a reduction in your stress and overwhelm. I will never forget the day when it began to dawn on me that I was not responsible for what my children did or did not do. I had taught them the best that I knew how to do. And now it was up to them. And it was up to me to cheerlead them and to have confidence in them and to trust that when they did something that was maybe not so helpful for them, that they would learn from it and they would become better citizens and better human beings as a result. That understanding brought freedom, tremendous freedom, and it still lasts today. This class will help you develop your ability to respond in helpful ways to the burdens you face with your children. Your burdens of fear, of putting your value in your children and what they do or don't do, your anxiety that you may feel, frustrations, disappointments, all of those things have a message. And empowering yourself to know how to move through all of those challenges will help you to show up for your children in a positive way that will invite them to let you inside their lives in a very real way. This ongoing online group coaching program begins October 12th and ends December 7th. We'll meet for 1 hour every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Central Time. You can hop on my website at coachmandymarie.com to register. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, sign up for a call at coachmandymarie.com. Talk to you then.